Thank you so much. That's really great. I think I probably told most of you that, anyone I have seen in the last few weeks, that this is not a scholarly presentation. This is simply our impressions from the last time we visited Iran in July. We hadn't been there for a few years. Elaine? I didn't see her. We hadn't been there for a few years, and we were very anxious to go. We've lost a number of relatives over time, and so it was time to go back. And having gone back, we thought it might be interesting for people to get an idea of what today's Iran is like, because even in 4 years, some things, a lot hasn't changed, but a lot has. And so we're trying to figure out the best way of doing this. We have a short 10-minute presentation, a slide presentation. By the end of it, you'll know a lot of our relatives, about as well as we do. And they're great to know. And how many people here have seen the PBS special that Thomas Erdbrink did on Iran? You did?
2/3 of it. Me too.
Yeah. So the correspondent for the New York Times, Thomas Erdbrink, is Dutch, but he works for the New York Times, and he has lived in Tehran for about 17 years. He's married to an Iranian, and he did a 4-hour special on Iran that we found very interesting. Since most of you haven't seen it, I won't talk about the differences that we found with it. But at any rate, what we want to do today is to show you what the regular people who live in Iran look like. We have a very large family, about 150 relatives, and they pretty much run the gamut in terms of wealth and religion. So the people we generally stay with are ultra-religious. That is the family of Ahmad's sister, deceased. And the people we hang out with are sorry? Religious. The people we hang out with are the younger generation, because the people our age are just too old. So, yeah, so we tend to hang out with the younger people, and
What's younger?
40s and younger, 40 and under. So,
There's only two people here that I see.
Oh, under, yeah. So this presentation will be set up that will show this 10-minute slide presentation, maybe with some commentary. We might stop now and then.
No, we're not.
Oh, we're not. Okay. Scratch that. And then we'll talk about the conversations we had this time, that some of which really surprised us, with a cross-section of family and friends. And then we'll have a Q&A. And then we can all go out for Chinese food or something. So it's not on us, though. Okay, so shall we do that? What?
Okay.
What?
Well, I think you better sit down someplace. Careful. Careful with the mic.
Okay, we'll take it off. Can everyone see? Yeah, it's from the skylights.
Okay, just a minute.
Oh no.
Oh.
It's under. It's under. Now, she jumped up and ran away when the person with the camera came because she wasn't wearing a scarf. So these are from there, yes.
This is a dining room, yeah.
So these are various members of the different families. This is a typical street, and Mount Damavand surrounds Tehran. And everything is decorated under bridges, along highways. There's art everywhere. Some of it is political, the Iran-Iraq War. That was the U.S. Embassy. And then we have Al Pacino. Go figure. That's a Greek church, and this is a Jewish old age home. And these are alms boxes everywhere. And these are different kinds of living spaces. This is what they're building now for, it's like 5 or 6 stories. That's where we stayed. And there's construction everywhere. And everybody is energy efficient. That was my brother-in-law. This is how she looks sometimes, and that's how she looks without her scarf. And people pray just anywhere in the house. Interspersed will be pictures that I'm in, and for 2 weeks I did not wear a scarf. So, and nobody said anything. I was everywhere. Nobody said anything. Men work in the kitchen. That's decorated yogurt, and it's food, food, food all the time. All the time.
So the preparation is by the men?
That beets and almonds in the bazaar, and fast food. Our fast food places don't look like that. That's just a typical restaurant, and every other street has these beautiful fruit and vegetable stores. And the smoothies cost about 60 cents. And this is old Tehran. That's how the buildings looked. And there are mosques everywhere, little local mosques. And this is the old and the new. And this is inside the bazaar. And even though they want women to cover up, this is what they sell outside the store.
Underpants right there.
So you see there are variations within families of what people wear. This is a glitzy shopping mall that has a porcelain Last Supper. And these are 2 girls the same age. She just had a nose job, and she's teasing her. She just put a bandage on. And contrary to what people say, kids do hold hands and hang out together all the time. This is a member of the family was getting married. And there they are. And these are our relatives and their children. That was the World Cup. And there are many, many playgrounds, very beautiful playgrounds. What is Place of Wild? Yeah. Amusement parks. Beautiful sculpture. Now, this is something new. Street musicians, that was never permitted before, and now you see them. So this is near a train station, and here I am with no scarf. In a big shopping area where there was a very good band, but then they asked us not to take pictures of them. They were still a little nervous. And people giving money, just like here. Tehran, yeah, so Tehran. A beautiful bookstore. They have really magnificent bookstores. And like the Strand outdoor book places. And they have a lot of American books like Steve Jobs and Matt Damon, big. The movie theaters. Beautiful parks, unbelievable parks. And the Tehran Peace Museum. And this was your, people go out. We eat dinner around 11 o'clock at midnight. We go to a park. And this is, it was 1 a.m.
Scooter, bicycle riding.
And they light it up, it's lit.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see any peace. That's good.
This is a small park. It celebrated its 80th birthday there. This is a typical mode of transportation. Sometimes there are 5 people on a bike. This is the subway.
Wow.
Take a look.
Clean.
It's gorgeous. It's my favorite place to go. It's magnificent. This is a major highway. All the signs are in English, so it makes it a lot easier to know where you're going. And these are typical little stores along the sides of roads. This is the airport. What does it say, Ahmad?
This is the Khomeini came, Shah went.
Khomeini came, Shah went. That's what it says in the airport. And buses are very popular. They cost like $6 or $10 to go. And that's what you see at night. This is Shiraz, my favorite city. The tomb of Hafez and the tomb of Sadi, 2 of Iran's great poets. And this is a bagh or garden. There used to be hundreds of beautiful gardens. They're all gone. And this is Persepolis. How old is it, Ahmed? 2,500 years?
2,500.
Tomb of Cyrus? Tomb of Cyrus, is that?
That's right.
And this is Esfahan. It has some of the most beautiful mosques in the world. It's a much more formal city than Shiraz. Not as friendly. but beautiful. Harems used to listen to the music through those holes that wafted up into the harem. And that's a women's collective, and they hand do plates. Now we're in the mountains, and we were at the top of a mountain. This is my niece, Nahid, and I think she's a great dancer, so I put this in.
She's wearing blue jeans, right?
Oh, yeah. And then there were these young men who were playing rock music very, very loud, and started to dance and offered us kebab. And this is the 80-year-old himself, who just couldn't resist. This is a man who was making yogurt and insisted that we join him. That was my brother-in-law who died, but
This is my brother's tomb.
well, first his wife died, our sister-in-law, and then he died. So
While you were there?
no. And that's it. So, whoop. Oh, yeah.
You lost your mind.
So, I hope that gives you a little picture of what Iran is like. There was a question earlier from someone who asked whether Iran is scary to go to. And I hope that this answers the question, because Iranians are so warm and so friendly and so welcoming. And I like to say that if you're standing in line to get into a place, and you'll have to strike up a conversation, because if you're speaking English, people just swarm to you. And Elaine was there, so you'll tell me if I'm wrong. Right, and if you talk to a stranger for 15 minutes, she or he will invite you to their home for dinner, but if you talk to them for half an hour, you've got to sleep over. And I'm not just saying, that's really true. We've been through that several times, but we never slept over. So, let's see, what else did I want to talk about? As I said, our family is very diverse in so far as religion goes. We have the people we stay with are ultra religious, and the other side of our family is not religious at all. But they get along and they do coexist. When we took our boys to meet their family, one of our relatives asked how often they went to the mosque. And our boys said, well, we don't go to the mosque. And so Mustafa said, oh, you pray at home. And there was a long pause. And they just really can't conceive of it not being the way it is there. Unfortunately, travel is difficult for them. Most of the world they're not allowed to travel to. The places they recently have been able to travel to are, I wrote them down, Dubai, Thailand, Georgia, but not the south of the United States, Malaysia, Greece, the UK, and Turkey. So they're able to get...
Who disallowed?
What? And Lebanon. I'm sorry. Excuse me, May. I'm writing this down. And Lebanon.
But who does the allowing and not allowing?
What?
Who is it that is not allowing or allowing?
Who is it who's not allowing or allowing?
The government of the United States and some governments of Europe, they don't give visas.
Really?
The Iranian government has no trouble for its citizens to go anywhere. And especially now, here, as we all know, with Trump, people from many countries have a problem getting here altogether.
Yeah.
So,
But they all.
people who
Oh,
want
sorry.
to travel, they travel. Most of the people who are religious, they go to religious cities of Saudi Arabia, believe it or not, because my kid, Marina, is there. Iraq has major, all the imams are in Iraq, buried in Iraq, so traveling to those places happens all the time.
There are about 25,000 Jews living in Iran now. And the government of Israel has offered them a lot of money to leave and to emigrate to Israel. And it, in the article by Roger Cohn in the New York Times, he quoted people as saying, we are Iranians first and Jews second. And we would never leave our country. We love our country. And there's always a Jewish person and a Christian and a Syrian, yeah, in the Majlis, which is the parliament. So there is representation there. Let me see what else.
Is that number lower than previous or similar or what?
Yeah, you mean the number of people?
25,000?
Well, there were.
The 25,000 are in LA. That's why they call it that's why they call LA Tehrangeles now. They have
Yeah, they
more
do.
in
Oh,
LA.
no. But what I meant
Tehran
is that there used to be lots more.
Well, there were the most Jews outside of Israel in the Middle East were in Iran. A lot, I know, but a lot of them at the time of the revolution, because they didn't want to live under an Islamic government, they took their suitcases of money and they got on the next plane to places like Great Neck, Dix Hills, but mostly LA. And because they came with so much money, they were able to buy their homes and the furniture in it with cash and build businesses because they could afford to. So they were not your usual immigrant. And that will bring us to something else that we wanted to share with you, which was the conversations that we had with many of our relatives, especially the younger relatives. We were very surprised and chagrined when several of our young relatives told us that they love Donald Trump.
What have they heard?
Why do they? Because they are getting a lot of propaganda from the aforementioned Iranians in the diaspora who in Los Angeles, but in UK we were told that there's a lot coming out of the UK, and people. There are a lot of Iranians who now own radio and television stations, and so the young people are getting this information by satellite, and because it comes out of the United States, they think it's true. I mean, they're not critical thinkers. They think that if the Iranians who live there are telling them something, then it must be true. And we spent the entire time in Iran talking and trying to help them understand that the enemy of your enemy is not necessarily your friend. And this has happened because the Iranian government is corrupt. There's a lot going on and a lot is coming out now. Interrupt me anytime, please.
Keep going.
And even our very, very religious family who would blindly follow, the government. Right. Because it worked for them, they're very religious people, it's fine. They have now basically started really questioning the government and being very negative about the government. However, they do not buy the Donald Trump line. They don't. Even though these other people who are listening to the propaganda are telling them that Trump has made America great again, and it will make Iran great again, that the wealth that everyone enjoys in this country, because we all are have so much wealth and the streets are so clean. My nephew Mehdi, who was talking to me when in the park, and then there was trash, because I have a lot of other footage where people are picnicking until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then they go to work. I can't figure it out, but and there are all these picnics, and they dutifully, go over there and put it in the trash thing, and then he could not believe that our streets are not immaculate.
So you didn't bring pictures with you of the New York City streets?
No, it didn't occur to me, but I will next time. I will. Yeah, oh, you didn't see the movie theater? Yeah, there was a movie theater. Yes, there are a lot of movie theaters. It's nothing like, I'm glad you said that. It is nothing like Saudi Arabia.
Well, Iranian cinema has been and still is one of the best in the world,
Right.
and one of the most sophisticated filmmaking in the world.
So you should see some of Asghar.
Majidi.
No, I'm talking about Separation, the guy who won the Academy Award. Netflix, yeah. The films are wonderful, and this particular filmmaker gives a very good picture of what modern Iran looks like, because he follows middle-class young couples.
Well, he's actually a mediocre filmmaker. He's only won 2 Academy Awards.
Yeah, two Academy Awards.
Best foreign movie.
Yeah,
So
fantastic.
he's on his way up.
Do they show movies from other countries?
Do they show movies from other countries? That's a good. Ahmad, do they show movies
Sorry?
from other countries?
Yes, they do. Yes.
Well, they have a film festival, so yeah.
Well, Tehran Film Festival, first
Yeah.
of all, is very, very big internationally. And also, they show films from every country. Unfortunately, I don't think they show too many American movies because they can't do business with America. But and with foreign films, except if there is nudity, which is usually the rest of it is the women. The women in foreign films don't have to wear scarves,
Right.
so it's okay.
So it's okay. But you may have caught the irony of the fact that that women, just to be really clear, Iranian women don't have to cover their faces. We have some religious relatives who, if somebody not in the family comes over, they may, do this. But generally, all you have to wear is a scarf and be covered to here, because we know this is the sexiest part of the body. It certainly is for me. And long pants. But the makeup, you can use a palette knife to take it off. The nail polish, the high heels, the pompadours, and they wear the scarves on the ponytail. So they're getting there. It's a matter of time, but they're definitely getting there. And it's a real dilemma for the government, because if they give them an inch, That's it. I mean, that's it. If they say you don't have to wear hijab, all hell will break loose. Suddenly they'll be wearing capri pants. I mean, it's really a nightmare for them. So I can't take the questions, but if you can wait till the end, and we're okay, is that okay? What else did I want to share with you? So we were extremely upset about this whole Trump thing. And everything we tried to explain to them about what's really going on here, they would say, no, Iran is worse. Iran is worse. Yes, I know that they're stealing children, and these children are traumatized. Iran is worse. Whatever it was. However, I think we may have made a little ground by the time we left. But that's something to think about. When you hear about Iran, because Radio Free Europe is piped in by satellite. I mean, so there's an incredible amount of propaganda, and not only propaganda, but infiltration. I mean, we know that there's plenty of infiltration there. Women working, a lot of people here think that women are they confuse Iran with Saudi Arabia. Women, I would say, do the majority of the driving. Did you notice that, Elaine? There are so many women behind the wheel.
And they're out alone on the street.
That's right.
Oh yeah. I mean, anything we do here, they do. I mean, they travel alone. Elaine went with a French group last year or 2 years ago. 2 years ago, and I'm so glad you did, because
I've never met a warmer, kinder people.
Yeah, they really are. There, a lot of kids are studying English. I mean, they're all studying English, but they're really very interested in speaking English, and they all want to come to America. Not necessarily to live, but they see it. They see it on, because there's satellite, so they see television. They see foreign television. The music and everything, and it's appealing to them. And this is one of the problems with the whole propaganda thing, is that they go on Facebook, or they look in old books and they see the pictures prior to the revolution of women in bikinis, and they're lying on the beach, and everybody's going to a nightclub, and there's vodka on the table, and it appeals to them. I mean, because they want to do whatever they want to do and not be constrained. And I have to say that when we were there 4 years ago, one of our young nieces or cousins, I'm not sure what our relationship is, but we're all related somehow, said that she felt that in Iran 4 years ago, for the young people, there wasn't a lot of joy. That was how she put it. And what she meant by that was that they feel very constrained about just going out and going to the beach and doing what people in the Western countries and Eastern countries, some, also do, and it colors how they see their lives, and they don't, for some reason, they haven't been educated, this generation, in understanding why there was a revolution and why there had to be a revolution. And the same thing in Cuba, I think we found, Jenny, right? That a lot of the young people were ignorant in some ways about why there had to be a revolution. And so it's very similar to that hunger for what they see as a life of freedom, of personal freedoms. It has always been very safe there. When we go, we travel at all hours of night, but because of the sanctions and the hardship that a lot of people are feeling, it isn't as safe. We heard for the first time about robberies, muggings. We didn't experience anything like that. I mean, we feel very safe when we're there. And as I said, people are out all night. It is the most, I don't know if there's any other place. Is Lebanon like that?
Yeah, and also like Spain and
Barcelona, I know. Yeah. Right. Where dinner is late, and then everybody is like caravans of cars. They choose a magnificent park to go to, and they hang out, and it's mobbed, and these little kids, they're 5 years old. They never get tired. It's just, I don't know what it is, but it's impressive. So Ahmad, is there something that you would like to share about your impressions?
No, the only thing that I would add to what you said is that since the last time we were there, the propaganda has increased tremendously from the US and from some countries in Europe, and where what they are now pushing is Iranian nationalism. Like, look what we had achieved 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and now, so
The great kings, the
that's right. We were talking to a translator and a writer friend of ours who lives there and has translated a lot of very good American books in Iran. And when we were talking about it, he put it, I think, the most understandable way for me, that they are not pushing nationalism, they are pushing fascism. That we are better. So that's what they're pushing. And the other thing that I noticed, especially this time, is that when we were talking to a few people, they were talking about the fact that why are we supporting the Syrians? Why are we supporting the Palestinians? Why are we supporting the Lebanese? Why are we supporting the what? Yemenis. Why are we supporting all these? And just occurred to me actually a couple of days ago when we were talking about this, that we know what that source is, where it's coming from, that you shouldn't, as an Iranian, you shouldn't be doing anything for the Palestinians, doing anything for the Yemenis who are in desperate shape.
Why?
Well, it's coming from propaganda. It's coming from who doesn't want us to have anything to do with Palestine. Thank you very much. So it's coming from that. It's coming from there, and as we have all read a bunch of years ago in the New York Times and Washington Post and all that a lot of Iranian nuclear physicists were murdered. Now, were murdered, with some of them with their families, actually, while driving their car, assassinated.
By the Israelis?
Yes.
Yes. So we know a lot of the sources of this propaganda. As I said, it just occurred to me that we need to keep that in mind, that when somebody tells me in Iran, who's 20 years old, 25 years old, that why are we supporting the Yemenis, why are we supporting the Palestinians, that's where it's coming from. That's where it's coming. And we need to keep that in mind. And they, as I said, as Ann said, buy the propaganda because they're young. They want to drink and dance all night, Actually, they can drink and dance all night in their homes and the homes of their friends, but not in bars. So I think that's it.
Right, and under the Shah. Under the Shah, there was the Secret Service was called Sovak. As Sovak was trained by the Mossad. And when the first time I went to Iran was in 1971. So it was still under the Shah. And we were sitting in a restaurant and we were talking politically, I don't remember exactly what it was, but about the United States, about Iran. And suddenly a young man, college age, ran over, it was a full restaurant, ran over and to our table and looked at me and said, "You think that this is a wonderful country. You think that, that the Shah is probably a great person and he's made everything very modern. He's a murderer. He's killing everyone." And the restaurant went totally silent because 1 out of every 3 people was Sovak, right? And so...
Or so one thought.
Or so one thought, right. That's right. And he ran. And so that was my introduction to Iran. I think I'm an atheist. I have no love for theocracy. I have no love for the government. I know there are many abuses, just as there are here and in every country. But I do believe that it's up to the people who live in Iran to change it if they're not happy with it. And my great fear is the infiltration and what is in the works in order to, because, they talk about winning the hearts and minds. We got a little glimpse of that, and it was very, very frightening for us. It was very frightening. So I think basically that's it. And if anybody has questions, please, Emmett, do you want to come up here so you can answer questions, since you're the person who knows the most?
I do? Oh.
Well, Ann had her hand up during, so Ann.
No, it's very appropriate. Regarding the films, I was surprised they didn't mention 2 films by the Emiratis, Coup 53 and We Are Many. These are 2 incredible films.
Mm-hmm. But they live in London. They live in London.
Oh, so
yes, they don't live in Iran. Right, yeah. Right. But the Amirani brothers made a couple of films a couple of years ago, and one was about protest. Maybe some of you saw it. And it was about protest around the world. Yeah. But I don't think it went anywhere. Yeah.
Right. Yes. They're very good filmmakers, actually. They're very good filmmakers. Yes.
Another question. And you said the subways are beautiful and clean. Do they run on time?
Yes. They're quiet. They're quiet. They run on time. There's always a train coming into. Did you take, Elaine? Did you have a chance?
I have it.
Oh, okay. They're very inexpensive. How much is a subway ride?
About 5 cents.
How old is the subway?
It's new. It's modern. It's modern.
It's extremely modern.
But it's spreading. It's expanding and expanding. But it is, and there on each subway train there is a women-only car for women who are uncomfortable being close to men. And in fact, for years, on buses, the women sat in the back, And the men sat in the front, and then the women complained because they said, women sitting in the back, that's like the American South, the blacks in the American South. And so then some of the buses switched, so the women were in the front and the men were in the back. But when I take the bus, I sit with the men. So, yeah. And nobody, years ago, people looked like this, oh my God, and now, you know, it's nothing. Christine, just.
You pretty much, I think, answered I was wondering about the source of the pro-Donald Trump propaganda. You said it was coming from California and
the UK, mostly,
So,
yeah.
but who-
Wherever there are large concentrations
who's the
of
author? What's the
expats.
motivation? Who are the authors of this propaganda who wants them to believe Trump is a wonderful person?
Well, they're right-wing, mostly well-to-do Iranians who left at the time of the revolution. They are people who either were close to the Shah or who were pro-Shah, and so they made a lot of money in Iran because of that.
Cuba, the whole thing.
Yes, very, very much. And so when the revolution started, that's why they were able to convert everything to cash, put seriously into suitcases and leave.
That was my other question about when you said they bought homes with cash.
Yes.
And so where did that wealth come from? But you answered. So
That's
you
where-
answered that too. So the other
Right.
thing I wanted to ask was about lifestyle. If they're in parks, picnicking and having fun and socializing until 2 and 3 in the morning, you know, the stereotypical lifestyle in the United States is people work 9 to 5. Typical. I mean, there are differences, but you know, the most images 9 to 5 works 5 days a week. You know, and the weekend is when the nighttime. You know, late night. So, what's their lifestyle? What's the typical?
They get up and go to work.
And what's the livelihood though? What are they working at?
The same thing that we work at here. There are teachers, there are doctors, there are people in business, there are. It's exactly the same. What?
Factory workers.
Factory workers, bus drivers. Ahmad's brother
Metro drivers.
was a bus driver.
That's right.
During the day, do they have a day break like the Italians used to have?
Well, siesta.
Sometimes they do.
They used to. When I went at the beginning,
Right.
people would come home from work at about. They would not eat out. They'd come home and have lunch, and then everybody would lie down on mats and go to sleep for a few hours, and then they'd go back to work at about 4 until about 9 or something, and then they would go to the park. Or, I mean, we eat so late there, and we always eat late, but it's nothing compared to.
When I was young and lived in Iran, in the summertime, I usually worked for my brother, who had a couple of dry cleaner, and so I would work there, and we would have lunch, and my brother would just put his head on his hands for about 15 minutes, and that was his nap time, and I would go under the table, under the desk, and sleep until he would come and say, Ahmad, it's 6 o'clock, I think you better wake up. So,
Yes,
but now, I haven't, that's right, I haven't changed. But a couple of our nieces work in schools, and they're administrators and all that. So they, even during the summer, they work 2 or 3 days a week. And because of the heat, this summer especially, they would start at 7 and leave at 2, those 3 days. So, and then they would come home, and that was it. So nobody had to, they would come home and try to feed us. Anyway.
Yeah, but they would be out until 2, and then they'd go
that's
home
right.
and they'd get a couple of hours sleep.
That's right.
And they'd go to work.
Well, because most of them, if they are religious, they have to wake up before sunrise for the first prayer. So, next.
You said about the people that believed in the Trump propaganda, and partly because they were dissatisfied with their own government, and they didn't get enough history lessons to learn why the revolution happened.
Well,
in school.
I can't tell you because I haven't gone to school in Iran.
But you went to school in Iran.
Yeah, but he went way before the revolution. But when Jenny and I were in Cuba, we saw young people who didn't understand anything about the Cuban Revolution.
But you would think that would be sort of like
the
drilled into
thing.
people's heads.
That's what we would think, but for some reason it isn't. And I can't answer that. But that's the problem, is that they are not being educated in the reason why. Jane?
I'm curious if you can talk about conversations you might have had around the nuclear deal and sanctions and Trump pulling out. Because it seems to me that everything we've heard is that people's lives started to improve after the nuclear deal was came together, and that you would imagine that with Trump pulling out, people would feel a frustration towards Trump. So,
Well, right. That would be the logical way of thinking and the logical way of seeing things. That's not, unfortunately, the case, because we were having dinner at one of my niece's close friends' house, and the husband, who's in his 50s, said, "I love Trump," and they had fed us a beautiful dinner. But what happened was, the rest of the evening we were trying to not only ask him why, but trying to convince him that his way of thinking is so wrong, that Trump has no intention of helping anybody but Trump. But that's not the case.
That's not what they're getting.
The Iranian nuclear deal, the right-wingers in Iran did not want it, did not want the deal, because they felt that Iran is giving up too much. And however, they accepted the deal after it was made, and Imam Khamenei, who is the leader of the religious supreme leader, said that it's okay. So even though he basically wouldn't have signed it, but he signed onto it. But even with that, even though some of the sanctions were eased, okay, let's not forget that for the past 40 years, 39 and a half years, the U.S. has sanctioned Iran in so many different ways, and has pushed other countries to sanction Iran and not to deal with Iran and all that.
Freeze on all their millions
and they froze hundreds of billions of dollars of Iranian money in the banks. And that's why when they say that, well, we gave them $150 billion, excuse me, that's only part of their money. The rest of it is still here. So the new sanctions, well, as I said, the sanctions weren't really removed altogether under Obama. And Iran has not had a nuclear weapon program ever, except under the Shah, because the U.S. was, Iran was a powerful country in the neighborhood, and still is, except now the U.S. doesn't have that much influence in Iran. Then they had all the influence, and Israel had influence in Iran, especially after the 1953 coup d'etat that the U.S. organized, and it made it into a sort of a thing that they took it all over the world, and they did the same thing that they did in Iran, in South America, and all over. So, Iran had no nuclear weapon industry and or program, but they have the right to have nuclear energy, even though personally I think nuclear energy should be dumped all over the world. We don't need it, it's dangerous and it's not good. So that's the deal with the sanctions, and now sanctions are doubled and tripled and quadrupled. So that's why life is not as, I don't want to say as easy, because the 2 weeks that we were in Iran, honestly, we didn't see any unease about anything about the people. But
They complained.
they were complaining that an egg is 1,000 toman, with American dollar is 10 cents. but with American, I'm just saying. But with Iranian, yes.
Well,
Yes, who's next?
Martha had. Oh.
There are other people, but I just want
Okay.
So you have other people.
Martha?
Okay, I'm confused about the story of the Iranian nuclear physicist being assassinated by Israel. It seems to me that's a totally credible story, and yet we were talking about it from different perspectives, including propaganda. But it seems to me that is something that would be true under many different perspectives.
I'm not sure what you're saying. Well, we were talking about the nuclear physicists who the Iranian ones who were murdered by. So what's the?
No, why would you assassinate them if there's no nuclear?
No, why wouldn't you assassinate them?
She's thinking you're saying that's propaganda.
No, it's not propaganda.
They did assassinate them.
No. The assassinations are true. I read it in the New York Times.
No. They did. They were assassinated.
Yes.
In Iran.
Yeah.
Young nuclear scientists.
And they were working on nuclear energy.
Okay.
The question is that you were talking about propaganda.
Yeah, but that's not the propaganda.
Nidia.
One is a comment, the other is a question. The comment is about California, because I was living there when the Iranians were coming. And because most of them had driven Mercedes and really good German cars, when they came to LA, the most important thing is a good mechanic. The Iranian mechanics just spread. I mean, I've got this great mechanic. I can't tell you what an impact that made on LA. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's a sidebar. My question is about climate. Are there changes? Ahmed, you grew up there. There must be a different climate I don't mean political climate. I mean environmental climate. Did you see?
Well,
droughts or
yes. Yes. The southern part of Iran had major drought while we were there. And in the documentary that Ann was talking about on PBS, one of the most beautiful rivers that Ann and I and the kids, we would love to go and there have picnic next to that river, was dry. Was totally dry, and then it ran for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then it dried out again. So it is, and that's unfortunate, but it's true all over the world. So
and it was
yes.
Over 100 degrees when we were there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Jenny,
There's right
Jenny's
here.
had her. Yeah, but she's.
Follow up for a moment on the issue of the nuclear deal and the not signing onto it again, which is within Iran. Were there discussions, or where do the views get known. In other words, here we know that there were all sorts of reactions, pros and cons, to the deal to begin with, and people on the right thrilled it should never have taken place. It's great that it's over. Is that discussion taking place in Iran, and if so, where are the venues for the hearing of the different sides around that? Because you're saying people were not in favor of it, but I'm assuming there are a number of people who were in favor of it.
I'm sure, absolutely. Well, the discussions of this nature always takes place within, let's say, colleges, universities, and then the government pushes one way, the anti-government, the right wing basically is pushing another way. So there's always discussion of this kind of a nature happening all the time. Now, that reminds me when Ahmadinejad was running for the second time. Ann and I were in Iran a week before the election, and we were near the Tehran University, and all of a sudden I saw a group of these many people, young students, gathered, and they're talking and you know,
debating.
Some of debating. So I said to Ann, I have to go inside the circle. So I went inside the circle, and as we know, in that election, there were 3 or 4 people running, and they all had people who wanted them, people who didn't want them, and these students were having a major discussion.
Healthy debate.
Very healthy debate. I came out of that circle, and I was so delighted to have seen that, because it reminded me of my youth when Iran had many different political parties, and I was part of one of them, and we had all these discussions and debates all the time. And unfortunately, what happened was our president-to-be, Obama, went to Egypt and had basically a speech that didn't help the Iranian election, and it anyway, it doesn't matter. That's a whole different story.
I just want to say that this is a shameless plug. That if anyone wants to know about what's going on with the nuclear deal, please read the writing of my son. He's really good, and he really is an expert on the nuclear deal. Nima Shirazi, and he has a podcast called Citations Needed that is really good, and they're very clear. So
next.
Yes, you said something I didn't quite understand, Anna. You said somebody or something was pushing fascism by way of nationalism.
Right.
And what
Well, that is also coming from California. This whole Iranian nationalism is coming from California for the most part.
can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I just want to say that that the nationalism comes in the form of this reverence for the kings of old, like Kurosh, like Cyrus, who was, known to be, such a fair person, and he did the whole code and everything, and other occupiers, and so what they're really getting to, especially the young people, talking about the days of Kurosh, the days of Cyrus, and the right wing has, since the Shah time, the Lion and Sun icon, which is was a symbol of ancient Iran and of that time. That was the Shah's symbol that he used. It was a lion with a sun behind it with rays coming out. And so if you see that on a flag when there are parades here, these are the right-wing Iranians. The goal of these young, the goal of the people who are doing the propaganda, for many of them, is to return the Shah's son to the throne. Right. The Shah's son, and who claims that he wants a constitutional monarchy and that he's a really fair guy, and so they can have everything. And so that's a big part of what is happening. And
to add to what you just said, there's also a movement in the Arab world that I've been following, which also says the same lines. So there are writers in Saudi outlets, written and propaganda, which are also advocating for the return of the Shah, and that Iran was a less evil, quote unquote, country, which is now helping the Palestinians and helping the South Lebanese with their liberation, and the Syrians and the Yemenis. So this is precisely, and I have one article sent to me actually last night by a friend who's a writer, who's a right-wing, who wrote exactly about the need to go back to the Iran of the Shah. So it's all over now. Yes. It's not only in Iran.
Exactly, right. It's spreading, and that's what's so terrifying. Barry?
Yes. First of all, you left out one of the highly qualified Iranian filmmakers, some guy named Shirazi.
Oh.
Right, maybe that's right. He's young and
Right. You have a question?
No, I was quite struck with the comment on, I think it's your sister, who was critical of the corruption in the government. Was it right?
No,
our nieces. The point was that she was the older generation, highly religious, means that she would take the theocracy
and accept
serious, something she, but something she's somehow losing her I won't say faith, but
the credibility. That's right.
At the same time, the kids up to 60 are also critical, but like you say, if they want to go to a party, out and party, you don't have to go to a bar. You have a party in your house. Yes. I mean, it's never been a problem in any country, even in Saudi Arabia, party in your house, right? So that isn't the issue. But then you said to buy an egg, it would cost so much in Iranian currency, and so little in foreign currency. Why? Because the country's bankrupt, right? And people who have gotten rich during the current regime are taking the money out. I mean, the old people in Los Angeles were from before. Now the people who have gotten rich are taking their money out. Iran has been in discussions with the International Monetary Fund for a rescue program. The finance minister was just fired. So there are things happening. Absolutely. And if people are losing confidence with the government, if they think Trump is a great leader, I mean, it's ironic because the Ayatollah is their great leader.
Yeah, but
he is the establishment.
Right. But Trump is taking his place now.
Anti-establishment.
Right.
So,
well, it's complicated.
Is that interpretation that there's something that these people are all responding to, that that there's some trouble under the surface?
Definitely, and actually, what is happening is that a lot of corruption is happening, and while we were there were many people who were arrested for major corruption, one of whom had gathered 2 tons of gold. 2 tons of gold and gold coins to deal basically to overturn the market for himself and for his probably friends in LA. But so he was, that's right. And so he was arrested. And so they were making a big deal out of the fact that the guy had 2 tons of gold and something like $200 billion or whatever, you know, in American dollars. So there's a lot of that is happening, unfortunately. But then again, if we were to clean our government here, I think we would put a hell of a lot of them in jail for just being who they are and what they're doing. But no, absolutely, it's true.
Did you have a question?
Did I have a question?
Did you have a question?
Actually, they're related. First of all, did you have any trouble at the airport going in?
No.
Well, we never have any problem with Iranians. Our only problems are with Americans, even leaving. We have had, not this time, but we have had trouble in the past where we have had the secondary screening, the 4 S's written on our boarding pass, and then they put us on the terrorist line. And this is leaving our country. And then TSA sits there, and if you move your foot, they say, get back, and they treat you like you're a criminal. So it's not a happy thing. I think the older we get, the less they look at us. I have a feeling it used to happen a lot more than it does.
So we have no problem.
But I just want to tell you what happens when we're leaving Iran. When we're leaving Iran, Ahmad and I go through separate doors. There's a women's door and a men's door, and then we reunite on the other side. And I go through, like I went through, and there are 2 women. One is over there looking at the passport, and the other is supposed to pat me down, right? And so I'm going through, and the woman is standing there about to do that. And the second woman says in Farsi, she's American. No, Amerikai, nah. Oh, so the patter apologizes and says, please go, because it's similar to what also happens, and this bothers me, when we come in and your luggage goes through the thing. Sometimes they don't check our luggage because they're so polite. No, I'm not kidding. They are so polite that they will bend over backwards not to seem like they don't trust you. And I want to say to them, look at my luggage. I'm the one you should be worried about. So anyway, Marty, did you? Yes, I'm sorry. Obviously not, because I was the only person in Tehran not wearing hijab.
And nobody said anything.
What?
They never spoke. There were no.
Nobody said anything. And I just want to mention one little thing is that every Thursday now, every Wednesday, there's something called Chahar Shambe Safid, which means White Wednesday. And every Wednesday, somewhere in Tehran, some young women climb up on mailboxes or street lamps, and they're wearing white scarves, and they take them off and they do this. I didn't get to see anyone. I was sorry. Yeah, I would have. But I mean, I was everywhere. I just made this decision that I wasn't going to wear hijab, and if somebody says something to me, I would deal with it. I would deal with it, but it always bothered me. And when we'd go to the Caspian, I wouldn't wear it. On Kish, the island of Kish, it's a resort, so they don't care so much. It's looser. And in Tehran, I just figured I'm going to go for it. And the only responses, except for big smiles, especially from men, amazing, was one man who said to me, we were walking in a place that's a little more religious, a neighborhood, and he said, please, you should wear your scarf because
Somebody will arrest you.
right. So he was, trying to help me. Yeah, and a woman who passed me and said, "Oh, you've lost your scarf." So thank you. So. Oh, you can get arrested, but they're doing it less and less because they know it's a losing battle. Jay?
You showed construction. Is there any affordable housing, or is it all luxury housing?
No, there is affordable housing. I don't know too much about it. It's not all luxury housing. You could probably answer this better than I can.
Well, one of my nephews took us to a place a few years ago when we were there where they were making a lot of houses. And he said, "Uncle, I think I'm going to get one of these houses. This house is mine."
Apartment.
So when we went this time, he said, "The house is done, and mine is the only one with the garage." I said, "Good for you." Now that was started under Ahmadinejad, because for better or for worse, no matter what we think of Ahmadinejad and his policies, he did a lot of good things, and especially for the people. And just before the second election, as I said, we were in Iran, and we were in the bazaar, and there were a lot of posters, and I said, "I'm going to talk to a young person who owns a business here." I said, "You have a poster not for the Green Party, and could you tell me more about it?" He said, "Yes, I am not for Ahmadinejad because, for one thing, he's helping the people." I said, "Okay." I said, "What is he doing?" He said, "Well, he's given extra money to people who work in the government. He's given this. He's
everyone a house.
He's having all these houses built, apartments built, and this and that." And he kept going for about 20 minutes while Anne was waiting at the corner, saying, like, "What are you doing here?" So 20 minutes of basically saying that Ahmadinejad is only working for the people. So that's right. So at the end of our conversation, I said, "I really want to thank you very, very much. I really appreciate this conversation. You convinced me to vote for Ahmadinejad." So anyway, that's the situation.
I just want to say about that Tehran has grown so much. It has spread out. It's unbelievable. So that it has spread out. I mean, it's a huge country, so out, and you're on these massive super highways, beautifully landscaped, by the way, and there are all these buildings, these apartment buildings, and people like that. I mean, they're too far for some people from Tehran if they work in Tehran. I mean, so that's why they're doing so much more expanding of the metro, right? But the air is much clearer. When we were in Tehran this time, it reminded me of my first time in 1971. It was so polluted. I was like this the entire time. It was very hot there, and the cars there are so many cars there that you can't even believe how congested it is. It's like New York City is like a ghost town compared to Tehran 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter. Coming back from the park, it's 2:30 in the morning. We're in a traffic jam. I mean, it goes 24/7.
Next.
So.
Tourism. Did you see any, and who is traveling?
That's a good question. I didn't see any.
Well, the only people we were told who are going are Chinese, Germans, Europeans basically, Germans, Koreans, and but as I was talking to you, Jonathan, about the religious cities in Iran. Iran has two major religious cities, major Shia religious cities in the world. So there are a lot of people going for those two cities from all over, pilgrims from all over the world. They go there.
But you're talking about regulatory.
But you're talking about regulatory.
Either one.
Yeah.
I'm interested in this.
Yeah, we see very little, and it's really a problem. Now, Elaine, who's sitting behind you, as I told you, went on a tour to Iran with a French group.
We saw a lot of tourists.
You saw a lot of tourists? So there are places maybe where tourists go?
Europeans, but also Chinese.
Yes, a lot of Chinese.
We saw Chinese, we saw Belgian, Dutch, French. There are some American tours, but we didn't see any.
Yes, there are American groups that used to go and fellowship. Yes.
We're on the subject of travel and on the highways. There's no traffic whatsoever.
What?
Between cities, on the major highways, we saw no traffic.
Oh, between cities it's good.
Between cities,
but in
it's
Tehran it's a nightmare. Right.
Within cities.
Right.
But other than that, we saw no traffic at all. But the highways are very good.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Is there a national park system in those mountains? And when is it coming, and when are they marking the trails?
Well, there are actually a lot of trails and a lot. Well, Iran has always had. Well, okay, Iran has a lot of mountains, full of mountains all over, and there are a lot of mountain climbing. There are a lot of tours going through the mountains, and what has happened is, under the Islamic Republic, is there are thousands of major parks built, and they're still building parks. The parks that we showed in this, well, some of the small thing was just finished, and it is called the Highway of Nature. So there's a lot of attention being paid to nature and to promote parks and to promote all kinds of traveling through and all that. So
thank you so much.
Anybody else? That's it?
Much. You had a question.
You had a question.
I wanted to know whether a person could travel there not in a tour, but as an independent tourist. Would be different.
Whether a single person not with a tour could travel in Iran.
But not necessarily a single person, just not.
I mean single as opposed to with a group.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can get.
If you can get a visa.
It's just a matter of getting visa. If you are interested, you can get in touch with the Iranian office in Mission in Washington D.C. and they'll tell you if and how and when you can travel.
Is it hard to get a visa?
Yes.
From Iran?
I think
from Iran?
I think
I have no idea, but you know, I don't know. You can call. It's called Daftar, DAFTAR, and it's in Washington. They'll tell you. Well, we don't know because we don't have to go through that.
I think they prefer that you go with a tour.
Oh yes, it's easier.
Yeah,
it's easier to
and
go
I
with a
think
tour.
What do you think, Elaine?
It takes time. I spent the whole day in Washington to get the visa. It was very nice, very sweet.
Oh, that's right. I remember you getting a visa because you had to go through here to get a visa rather than from France. That's right.
When I walked into it's in the Pakistani embassy.
That's right.
There's an Iran desk, a desk in the Pakistani.
Walk in, immediately told me I had to go.
That's right.
That was very hot.
Thank you very much. This was lovely. Thank you. I hope that the next time we talk, our countries, well, I said our countries because Ann and I are dual citizens. I hope that the next time we talk, our two countries are a little better together, a little closer, and
Supporting Trump.
yes, Jenny, yes.